I am Justine Goodman. I'm the Editor-in-Chief at She Media. And welcome to BlogHer Health. We're so excited, yeah. So I'm very excited to be moderating this panel. It's all about that SEO. I know Cash is Queen is happening right next door, and that sounds very alluring, so we appreciate all of you coming here. So this is a masterclass in search engine optimization. It doesn't sound super sexy, necessarily, but it is a critical piece of the puzzle when it comes to making sure that the amazing content that you're all creating is finding an audience, finding the biggest audience possible. So I think there's sometimes a misconception that good SEO is prohibitive of good content, and that good content also can't be SEO friendly, and that just isn't true. So we are going to prove that to you. And I'm going to start by introducing you to our amazing panelists. Lindsay Valdez is Director of SEO at She Media, where we work very closely together on our owned and operated sites, including She Knows and Stylecaster, which some of you may know. And she also works with bloggers and influencers in the She Media Partner Network. Some of you may actually be in that partner network. And also works on audience development. Constance Ejuma is the SEO director at Penske Media Corporation. And she oversees SEO strategy at more than a dozen brands like Rolling Stone and Variety and Deadline, no big deal, brands you might have heard of. And our third panelist is Brandon Leibowitz, and he's the founder of SEO Optimizers, which is an SEO marketing agency. And give me a minute. There we go. An SEO marketing agency with a very impressive client list based here in LA. And he also has the distinction of being the only male on stage here at BlogHer, so you're very brave. Thank you for that. We're very happy to have you. So thank you so much for being here, and we're going to jump in. And as I think you already know, we are going to leave some time for questions at the end. So think about some good things that you'd like to ask these amazing people. We should have a slide up right now that shows a glossary of terms, and since we can't see the screen, I might need you guys to help out a little and tell me if that's what's on. Great, so we're not gonna walk through every single one of them, but it is important that we're all speaking the same language when we're talking about SEO. There are different terms, there are different meanings, SEO changes so quickly. So we wanted to just sort of have these core definitions up on screen, and we are going to keep them up there for a little while if you are worried that you got to get it in really quick. So one of the biggest challenges that content creators face when it comes to SEO is that unfortunately Google does not give us a cheat sheet. They don't give us a roadmap. Good luck trying to Google how to beat Google. You will not get the answers. I have gone down that rabbit hole many, many times. But they do tell us some things explicitly that can help us understand how they're evaluating our content and how they're ranking our content. So my first question is, what are some of the most important things that content creators should be mindful of right now, particularly in the health and wellness space?
Great, thank you. First of all, I'm so excited to be here. I see familiar faces throughout the years, and even just over the last few days, getting to meet some of you, and I love the energy and the environment that we have here. So as far as where Google is right now, something that is to keep in mind is that they're really focusing on establishing trust. And I felt like this was such an important topic to cover in a room full of health experts because it's one of the strictest topical area to write content on. Google is in a place right now where they kind of feel the pressure a bit. We've all heard over the last few years about fake news and fake information that somehow crept into the search engines, and that reflects poorly on Google, right? They're a company, they're a business, they're trying to be accountable to get you, the user, accurate information and correct information. And how important is that in the health space? Literally, people Google and take that information more than they should, consult a doctor or things along those lines. Or they'll read something and you just have to be so careful. Google's trying to be so careful that it's correct. So when you are writing It's really important on health topics to just make sure that even across the whole site, some of you probably are a one-man show and you're the only writer on your blog, and some of you may work with multiple writers, and to just make sure the quality of writers is high. These are health experts. You know, there's been years in the past where you might hire a writer that wasn't necessarily qualified to write that article on a topic. And something that I would recommend now is just making sure that author and the website is correct. Google, there's a rating called EAT, and this is expertise, authority, and trust. And that almost everything they're doing kind of funnels into those areas. They want to know that you are qualified and an expert in your field before putting the content up.
Yeah, that's a great point. And Constance?
Yeah, I just wanted to expand a little bit on what Lindsay just said. Google assumes that if you are writing about health, that one, you should be an expert, and two, if you're writing that kind of content, they are assuming that your content could have an impact on people's lives. So they are trying to be extra careful.
As they should be, right?
As they should be, absolutely.
Especially
and they have
in
this
space.
term where they refer to health content as your money or your life. If you're about to publish something related to health, would you bet your money or your life on it? And if you can, then you may publish. And if you can't, then you probably shouldn't. Another thing I would say to be mindful of is that, I think all of you here are familiar with, keyword research, having a focus keyword in mind as you're writing your content, but you can't just limit yourself to making sure that you have a focus keyword. You have to go a little bit beyond that and think about the relevance of the content that you're writing. You can't write a post about, the benefits of yoga and casually mention something like yoga gear in your article and expect that article to rank for yoga gear, because that article is not necessarily focused on that topic.
Right, it's not about that topic.
Exactly.
It really needs to be about the thing that you are.
Exactly. So you really need to make sure that the content you are writing in that particular article is very focused on that topic in order to be really, really relevant for the focus keyword that people might be searching on.
And then to jump on some other things, in general for your website, you want to make sure that loads fast, because Google puts a high emphasis on your load time. If you search on Google, at the top in Google search results, it shows you how fast they gave you the search results. So they pride themselves on having fast results, and they don't want you to get to a website that loads really slow. There's a free tool called Google Pagespeed Tester, I think. That one will show you everything that's wrong with your website. It'll show you line by line on the coding what needs to be changed, and basically you could send this off to a website developer, or you can make the changes yourself. But emphasis on really making sure that loads fast. Also, that it's optimized for mobile, because mobile really is dominating. Not that just it looks good on mobile, but you could actually navigate through it, find your content, find your products, find your services. So I would say have friends or family go through your website and say, can you find this page, and actually watch them on mobile, because it's a lot different user flow on mobile versus desktop. I mean, I would do the same on desktop, just test it out. You never know how your site's gonna react, because we all know how our site looks, and it's easier to find our content, but letting other people look on it helps give a fresh set of eyes, and that should definitely help out a little bit.
So some of you might be thinking, okay, that sounds good, but I'm a writer, I'm one person, I don't know anything about code, and I don't know anything about some of this technical stuff. So, and even if you do know about it, you may not have a team of people who are helping. So how can a smaller blog or site without a large staff compete with some of the major sites that are covering the same topics in this space without necessarily having those resources?
Yep. It is a little tough if you don't have all these resources. You could go on third-party sites and look at like freelancer.com and hire some people to do the one-offs for the mobile site optimization and speeding up the site. But in general, you want to build up as much trust as possible to Google. So building up as much content that's good, original, quality content is going to help out a lot. But then you want to get third-party sites to actually link back to you. that kind of is a vote to, in essence, to your website. So the more niche relevant websites that link back to you, that's going to establish trust and really help get you ranked to the top of Google, because Google wants to see backlinks come to your site. Anyone could put keywords anywhere on their website. That's easy to do for the most part. It's the backlinks that actually prove to Google essentially their votes. There's a lot that goes into backlinks that I can't touch on, but backlinks are really going to help move you up the needle and show Google that you are relevant. And then just making sure that your content is really original, unique. Try to expand on topics. Don't just write a couple hundred words. Try to expand it as much as possible and put as much content out there as possible. Breaking it up even with like different headings or bullet point lists. Those work really well, especially getting into the featured snippets on Google. So
What about, I know it comes up a lot on my editorial team that, you know, we're not nearly as big as some of the other sites that we try to compete against, but one of the ways that we tackle that is trying to come up with really original angles about the same topics that the bigger sites are covering. So, you know, if we know that we sort of aren't going to win in a certain category, we try to find another entry point. And I think that's something Lindsay can speak to a bit about, sort of experimenting with ways that you can own things.
I think that there's now actually more chance than ever to share the search results, right? You have those big sites that dominate, but there's actually a lot of positions that smaller sites can be visible in the search engine today. But one thing I think too is establishing yourself as a unique brand and engagement with your users. I think that sometimes gets lost on the high. These big companies that don't always have that sort of like just responsiveness to questions or engagement on social media, and all of those things kind of lend itself to establishing you as an expert and as an actual brand. And also another area is just quality content and a unique voice, as Justine touched on a little. You know, your users are going to come back to you if you're interesting and funny, and they're not seeing the same, you know, angles that's covered everywhere else. So really just establishing yourself as
sort of a thought leader in the area that you want to win.
And it may seem really obvious, but communicating with your audience outside of just your website, going on social media, making sure that your content is being shared on Facebook and Twitter and, you know, LinkedIn even sometimes.
All platforms.
In all the platforms.
All the places where someone might find you.
Exactly, because your audience is, you know, it can be pretty broad, and just because you're publishing something on your site, their automatic behavior is not for them to come into your site every day and check what new content you have, but they are likely spending a lot of time on these social media platforms, so it really does help for you to share your content out there. Another thing worth considering is that if you have a really small publishing team, if it's a 1 or 2 person kind of editorial team, you know, quality will always trump quantity, but you also have to think about the frequency with which you publish content. You know, are you publishing 1 article a day? Are you publishing, you know, a couple of days a week? Guaranteed your competitors are publishing a lot more frequently. They're publishing every day. And the trick is that the more fresh content you have on your site, the more you entice Google and all the other search engines to come to your site more frequently to see what new things you have. So if you are not publishing frequently for whatever reason, I would strongly encourage you to kind of rethink that strategy. And, you know, if it's just a matter of 1 or 2 articles a day, it's better than skipping days and letting that lag.
That's a great
I'm so
point.
glad that you said that, actually. So many times throughout the years, I've met bloggers that are also influencers. That's, you know, so they put all their time and attention in building their social media following, which is great. But in the long term, Constance is exactly right. And then I'll say, like, well, how many times are you posting on your blog? And it's kind of like a twice a month kind of thing. That's just not going to cut it. If you're going to invest in your website, it absolutely means posting frequently, like even at least once, twice daily for sure, to really elevate like the trust and just the consistency that Google knows you're a maintained site. Somebody's really paying attention to it. When you only post, you know, every now and then on your blog, it's just they don't have the same trust in you.
Right. Great points. So getting a little bit back into the technical side, there are a couple of things that really can sort of be a game changer and make or break how Google is ranking your content that you don't need to be a tech person or have an IT team at your disposal to do. And if you want to be ranking higher on the search engine results page, there are certain fields in a typical CMS. I don't know what everyone here is using, but WordPress, for example, if you have a WordPress site, there are certain fields where you might be like, I don't know what that is, so I'm just going to fill something in here. But there's a couple in particular that we want to highlight because they are sort of the primary signal that tells Google what your story, what this page is about, and optimizing them and understanding the differences between them will completely change the way that you're being ranked. So can you guys give us an idea of what are those most important fields? And I'm going to hand that one to Constance.
Sure. So depending on whatever CMS that you use, they're all going to have these 3 basic fields. The most critical one, I would say, is the SEO title. So that is the meta title that it could be your headline or a modified version of the headline. It absolutely has to have your target keywords in it. It's also advisable that you make sure that your target keywords are as close to the beginning of that title as possible, because there is a 70-character limit. So, once you go beyond 70 characters, what you'll start seeing on the search engine results pages is, the ellipses. I'm sure you guys have seen that where a title gets cut off. So you really have to make sure that if you have important search terms or keywords that you really want Google to make you relevant for, make sure that they appear as close to the beginning as possible. So that's what the SEO title is. Another field is the description. So this is like a 1 or 2 sentence summary of what your article is about. It should also contain your target keywords, and it should be very concise and straight to the point. Another thing is your slug. Now this is the field that in the URL that is unique to the particular article that you are about to publish.
So everything after your domain, basically.
Exactly. It's right. It's right after your domain name, so it could reflect the headline of the post. Depending on what kind of CMS you have, it may even have an ID at the end of it. And the thing about the slug is that you want to make sure that your, again, focus keywords are included and front-loaded. It doesn't really have to read like a sentence, so it's strongly encouraged that you remove stop words, things like and, or, but. Those are not necessary. The reason why these 3 things are critical is because they are the things that show up on the search engine results pages. So it really benefits you to take the time to customize these fields, because this is what people are looking at, and this is the information that will help them make the decision as to whether or not to click your post or click the other 9 that appear on the search engine results pages. So it's really, really worth your time, because it could make a difference between you getting a click and you not getting a click to your site.
And
So a few more things that you might want to look at is images. So when you search in Google, images occasionally show up in the search results. So if you could optimize your images to appear in the search results, that's a great thing. The biggest thing is when you upload your images to WordPress or any of these platforms, it usually says title, description, caption, alt tag or alt text is really important for SEO. The other ones are good, but for SEO, alt tag or alt text is where you want to just put a description of what that image is. You don't want to just fill it up with keywords. You want to just make it really descriptive and just say, like, if it's a logo, say it's my company logo. If it's a bunch of people smiling, say happy people. You don't want to just stuff it with keywords saying happy people smiling for health and wellness in Los Angeles. That's what Google will say is going to spam me. And
but that is the image of what's happening here right now.
Yep, and a lot of people do that, unfortunately. And also, before you even upload the image, the file name, don't just have it file name 001.jpg. Put keywords into the file name or descriptive words. That's going to really help out, because Google cannot read images. I mean, they're getting better at it, but they really don't understand what images are. And when they're crawling your website, all they see is the code. So they look at the file name and the alt text or alt tag. They have different names, but Those two are really important in terms of SEO, just to help get more visibility, because the more visibility and the more real estate you can take up on Google, the better off you are, especially since Google images do occasionally, not always, but once in a while, they'll show up in the search results.
And if it's an image of a known person or public figure or a famous person, it is also a good idea to say who that person is in the picture. You know, so-and-so smiling or so-and-so at whatever event.
Whatever anyone would search for to get to that image is good. And Brandon already touched on it a little bit, but mobile friendliness, keeping in mind how fast your pages are, things along those lines. And one last thing, this is gonna go a tad advanced, but write it down if you don't know what it is. But Google really, they want you to tell them, right? Think of all the millions of pages Google is responsible for organizing, right? Think about how hard that is for humans, the team of manual workers at Google, but also just their algorithm and how that runs on its own to kind of evaluate different sites. And so they write down structured data if you do, and there's lots of great WordPress plugins that'll take the code kind of component out of it. So yeah, you'll have to, I can't get into the whole thing now, but it's a set of code that allows you to tell Google who you are as an organization, what your site's about, where, everything in a way that they can quickly get to it. Kind of in the way of, like, if you've ever heard of an SEO recommending an XML sitemap. Things that when you can provide something to Google sort of like where they don't have to crawl the front of your site, it's just they're going to be able to
like
understand
on the back end.
Understand their site better. So look that up if you have any questions. It's kind of more of an advance, but that is one that I've seen great luck with it recently. We had, not to go off topic, we've had some brand changes over you may have noticed, She Knows Media to She Media, and just to get Google to understand, all those things that were ranking for She Knows needs to be ranking for She Media, like things like that are confusing to Google as well, and to get them, any information you can about your business is helpful.
So we're going to move on to the next slide. So we're not going to walk through each and every one of them, but we're just going to kind of focus on a couple. So for each of you, what would you say is the most valuable tool in your SEO toolkit?
So there's a bunch of different SEO tools that I really like, but one that I use consistently is called Ahrefs, ahrefs.com. That one really lets me dive into my backlinks, so I could see any website's backlinks. I could throw anyone's website in there and see exactly where the backlinks are coming from, and then I could go one by one and reach out to those sites and say, all right, I see my competitor has a blog post on this website. Let me reach out to this author or editor and say, can I pitch you an article or pitch you whatever it is? Because if they're on there and it's helping them rank at the top of Google, you want to see what they're also doing. And Ahrefs seems to have a lot more function or features that they keep pushing out, so they show you actually search volume for keywords. So if you want to do keyword research, you'd see how many people search per month for those keywords, because you want to be finding keywords that actually have search volume. You don't want to just be ranking for keywords that have 50 or 100 people searching per month. And it'll also track your keywords. So it'll show you how you're ranking on a day-by-day basis, so you can see if you're improving or dropping down. Unfortunately, this tool is paid. It's kind of expensive, but they do a 7-day trial for $7. So I would say for the link building aspect of it, which is the one I really use, make a list of all your competitors and just throw it in that tool. You could export it, and then you don't have to pay for it. Like, most of you wouldn't need to pay for it for a month-to-month basis. You could just use it one time, get all your competitors' backlinks, and then that will give you a lot of work to do, because you'll see you have hundreds or thousands of sites where you're going to be looking at their backlinks, and that's going to help out significantly. And another thing with content creation, a free way to find content ideas if you're kind of stuck on what should I write for my next blog post, you could just go to question and answer sites like Quora or Yahoo Answers. These are free sites. Type in your keywords and see what questions are consistently showing up. I mean, if people are going into Quora or Yahoo Answers or any of these other sites, then there's probably not good content out there on Google ranking. So that's an opportunity for you to write a blog post, throw that up on your website, and just compile all the questions in there and just make a one big inclusive all-in-one guide, and that should help get some more visibility and more content or more rankings for your blogs.
That's a really fun question, just because there's several really cool brainstorming topic ideas, which I know is super relevant to you guys, but free tools. Suval.com is really cool because it allows you to understand what people are searching for, and then another one is Ubersuggest.
I love Ubersuggest. We use that a lot.
That was what I gave to our editorial team not that long ago as a recommendation. Not only does it give you like the keyword research aspect, but it'll then like tell you who is ranking. So if you're yoga, let's think of a better example, but it'll like a fitness instructor and you want to rank for a certain term or whatever the specific term is, it'll show you who is ranking. So you can understand a little bit just by some research on what Google values.
It'll
That's
also
all.
show you, are people searching for that topic? And from an editorial standpoint, of course you don't want to choose every topic that you cover based on search volume, but you do want to look at search volume as an indicator of whether there's interest in the topic that you are writing about, because as much as we would all like for our content to be seen by a loyal, direct audience that is going to read no matter what we publish, whatever the topic, that's just not generally how it works. And so almost every week we look at ideas where I'll say, well, I do like that idea, but can we check Ubersuggest and see what is the actual search volume? Because sometimes we'll find that a story that really appeals to us is getting 50 searches a month, and that's probably not going to be a good use of my team's time to produce an article on it if we're not sure how people are going to find it. And Constance.
Yeah, I really like using SEO Moz. So they have a free as well as a paid version. And I believe with the free version, you're able to do things like just do basic keyword research. You're able to get backlink reports just to see who is linking to you and how relevant they are to your site. And maybe there's an opportunity there for you to have just start a relationship with other sites that are kind of in your neighborhood. You can also keep track of certain keywords that you're ranking for on a monthly basis. And they also have a page analysis tool where you can enter a specific page that you want to look up on your site and then enter a series of keywords, and the tool will basically analyze how well optimized your page is for that particular keyword and give you suggestions for what you can do to improve that page. Another tool that I really enjoy using is called Answer the Public. It's very similar to the Q&A
So
sites.
good.
That Brandon suggested. And what's really neat about it is that you can enter any kind of idea or concept or keyword that you want to look up, and this tool will essentially spit out like hundreds and hundreds of different types of queries and different types of questions that people are asking around that word or around that concept, and it really helps you identify what the user's intent is when they're looking up particular topics. And it'll give you great content ideas for like, well, if there's a bunch of people asking, how to tie a tie, then maybe I could write a post about that, because apparently there isn't enough information out there about it. It's also a great visualization tool. So it'll group kind of keywords in different ways and give you a good concept of what's popular and what isn't. And
it can also
the data
give you
behind
ideas for things that you would absolutely want to be writing about that you might not have thought of.
Yeah.
That we see things all the time where we realize this is a great idea for us, and it's coming from actual search volume. Great, so we're going to move to the next slide, which is a list of hacks that we put together for improving things that you could do right away to improve your SEO. That really don't require a particularly heavy lift. So we're just going to spotlight some of these are self-explanatory. I really like the one that's Google it, literally. Take a look and see when you start typing something in to Google, what is it suggesting? Because that is, the rest of that phrase is a good indicator that that's the thing that the most people are looking for. And sometimes it becomes a really funny meme when you start typing in somebody's name and whatever it's trying to sort of auto-predict. It can tell you a lot about people's behaviors and how it can inform your content. So Lindsay, what would you say is sort of the one you'd spotlight here?
Kind of looping it back to the beginning is work to improve your trust. Literally work to improve what Google knows about you and how much they can trust you. And one newer sort of recommendation is, or newer focus on from Google is to make sure you guys have an About Us page. Like, how simple is that? But Google will look for that page to, to find out more information of you and say, hey, this is a site that's trying to, is becoming a brand, and this is the page, and contact information or social media, sort of a way to find you as a writer and as a site owner. Google really wants to take out their responsibility in a way. They're going to try to do the best they can to get, great, unique quality in the search results, but then they, the reader should have direct contact to you in some way, or at least make it available. Make a phone, probably not a phone number, make social handles available.
Don't give anyone your phone number.
That might not be strong, but About Us page, and make it interesting and fun.
If you are trying to build a brand, to expand on what Lindsay's saying, you cannot afford to be anonymous. There is no such thing anymore. People want to know who you are you an expert in what you claim that you are, and how can we find you? Like, you can't afford to hide anymore. So, especially in the health space. I was talking a little bit earlier about this concept that Google has now called your money or your life. It's not just limited to health content. They've expanded that to sites that, take in people's financial information. Websites about law, news websites. These are the types of information sites that can impact people's lives. So it's really, really important. One big thing from me, as far as content quality and hacks that you can do to improve the quality of your site, is looking back at your old content and identifying thin content or low quality content that needs to be taken down. I can't tell you how many times I've done audits of websites where, for whatever reason, if there was a migration that happened with the CMS, if the site was redesigned, if the site changed hands, over the course of a period of years, you start finding pages that are blank.
Or you've just evolved over the time that you've been doing it, and when you started, it was just different.
And what was quality, 5-6 years ago is no longer acceptable now. And so, like, if you do an audit of your site and you come across pages that are just, they have gibberish on it, or they have one sentence on it, or it's just an image and nothing else on the page, you really have to look out for that stuff, because you have to understand that Google is not just looking at the new, fresh content that you are publishing. It can see your entire site, and it's evaluating and grading your site based on everything that's on your site. So if you have really great content that you're publishing now, and you have terrible content or content that's outdated, then it doesn't necessarily mean that Google sees your entire site as a great site. So don't forget that it can see everything.
Such a good point to speak to just that. Google is evaluating your whole site, not just the strength of that one post. If you're like, why didn't that post perform? Like, think outside, just think of the whole site.
So we're getting a little close on time. I do want to move on to the next slide. We have a little bit of an exercise. The goal here is to kind of take a look and compare what does good metadata look like. We talked earlier about the meta titles and the meta descriptions, and how this is kind of the #1 signal on the page that is telling Google what your story is about. And so we put together 3 different combinations for the slug, the meta title, and the meta description for a totally made up story where the on-site headline is just because you're pregnant doesn't mean you can't exercise. So that's the headline that shows at the top of the page on the story in all cases. So just by show of hands, who thinks that #1, A, is the correct combination? No hands. Well, very good. It is not A. A is completely wrong. Who thinks that B is the best option? Okay. And what about C? Okay, so B is the correct answer. And I'm gonna have you guys, if without actually looking at it, see if based on memory and brilliance, you can kind of walk through what is wrong with option A, what's right with B, what's wrong with C.
Okay, one thing on option A up there on the board, in the meta description, you will see at the end of it, it says click here. And there's just better ways to optimize. There's just better language to use that's of interest. Again, if you're not covering something that's never been covered before, nobody is. So you have to stand out in those search results. So that was one thing about the first one, was just kind of the unnatural language around the meta description and the call to action being so like harsh.
Yeah,
And the title for that one is way too long as well.
Yes.
Remember earlier when I said it's a maximum of 70 characters? I think this title is double that. The other thing is that the important keywords for this title also happen to be at the end of it, which means that once that 70 character limit hits, the most important part of this headline is being cut off, and the user can't see those words anymore, and so they're likely not going to click on your post because whatever it is that the query that they typed in doesn't really match, or to them it doesn't look like it matches what they're looking for.
One good trick that we use for remembering that, by the way, that might be useful is at Stylecaster and at Chinos, we say that meta titles should be business in the front, party in the back, meaning you want to put the sort of Google-friendly parts at the beginning, but then you also want people to want to click on what they see on the search results page. So you can still kind of put in something fun and clicky towards the end that will get people to click on that result, but business in the front.
Yep. And also the slug on A, it's really long and full of words that aren't exactly keywords, so you really want to just place emphasis on putting keywords in there. You don't want to just have it really long and it's drawn out.
Or have it match the headline exactly, which it doesn't
be
need
verbatim,
to do.
yeah.
So take the extra step there, just in WordPress or Squarespace, whatever you're building on. Just optimize the slug. It's just quickly get Google what it needs to know about the page.
Great, and then B, which is our good example, I think is probably sort of self-explanatory. It does all the things we just said that A should do, and it doesn't do the things we said A shouldn't do. But if anyone wants to elaborate, it's keyword rich. It's
Has a call to action in the meta description, so always place a call to action in the meta description because it's a free place to advertise yourself, and that's just going to get people's eyes. So if you get free shipping or free consultations, put your phone number in there if you want people to call you, or your email. I mean, it depends on what your business is, but just making it easy for them to actually reach out to you is going to help out. And
it
then,
just tells you exactly what the story is about without being redundant, without sounding like a robot wrote it, and gets the job done. And then the last one, I think it's pretty obvious what's wrong here, but I think we chose this example because I think this C example is what people often think you're supposed to do for SEO, and this is not what you are supposed to do for SEO. It should not be a list of just keywords, comma separated, with no personality. Everything that you are doing, especially in the meta title, meta description, metadata fields, should make really clear to an actual human being what this story is.
There used to be a time in this when you could definitely win that way, just keyword, and
That's where SEO got
kind
its
of
bad
all
rap.
of how we started hearing about this interesting SEO industry, but definitely not today. Google has evolved so much over the years to just better understand your natural language and what your content's about.
So, all right, with that, we're gonna open it up to a couple of questions. Yes, we're gonna have a mic coming. Hi.
So I'm just curious about two things. The first one being, can't you pay Google to optimize your search? No.
no, you
Okay.
can't pay Google. Google doesn't want you to do. Google
Okay,
wants you to
we
give
were
up and
wrong
do
about
AdWords. That's
And then
what
my second one was, what about blog posts where I'm starting this series of let's get clear. And so any blog post where I'm trying to clear the air around different topics, start with that. But is that bad for the meta title?
Yep, I would mix it up and try to put synonyms and plurals and just not just have it verbatim every single time. So because Google will catch on and say you're doing actually over optimization and penalize you for doing too much SEO nowadays. So
Well, but also,
you have
are
to have
you
that-
saying that it's sort of a franchise and you don't know, it's like a rubric that you want to use at the beginning of each story, but it's not necessarily a term that people are looking for? Or is it actually descriptive of?
Go ahead.
Well, it's just more so for a series of, or it's not for every blog post, but it's just sort of if there's ever a topic or an issue that from what I hear, understand, that has a lot of like discrepancy around it. It's sort of like my take on getting clear on that issue. So it's not every blog post. It's sort of like,
I've had experience with that quite a bit, just because as content creators and as an editorial team, you want to have those things that, you know, I remember that site, they have a series called Let's Be Clear, and that's their thing, and how to balance that with good, true search engine optimization is hard. Several like small things you could do would be like have a logo. That's what we do actually on ours. We have several. Justine can speak better to it.
My answer
or like
to that
a
would be,
banner.
don't put that in the meta title, because that's not the way somebody's looking for it. So I would put the topic that you are trying to address. That would be what I would front load with, because you should think of your headline on your site as a place where you can use Let's Get Clear, because that's not necessarily the signal that Google is looking at. And the meta title doesn't show anywhere on your page. It's only showing for Google.
okay, sorry, and your meta title, this is probably a really dumb question. Is that not the regular title? Is that something else?
It's a great question, actually. It's a great question, and it's really important that so there's two differentiations. You have your headline, your editorial headline, and then you have an HTML title or a field in your CMS that's like an SEO title.
Yeah.
So in cases like that, that's such a good example of like, you want to be fun and, you know, build this brand and have your personality, but you could use that in the headline
On-site.
title, and then on that field in SEO, don't use it and specify what it's about.
And we can talk more afterwards. Let's try to get another question in. Yeah, sure. Sorry, we got the mic coming. Oh, wait, sorry. We have to right here in the front, and then we'll go back. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, so I've been doing and learning a lot about SEOs and doing our website. Readability is another one down there, you know, in that little box in WordPress. Is readability also affected by the photos? You were talking about photos, and then also the SEO. Because sometimes I'll get a really good SEO, but then my readability won't match. And I'm like, what causes that a lot of times? Is that an okay question?
So that would be on the Yoast plugin, I think, for
So
WordPress. If you have Yoast plugin, it has these two little, or it has red, yellow, green saying readability and SEO score. I wouldn't really focus too much on that, because they're a little outdated. It seems like you have to spam and put a lot of keywords in places that are unnecessary. So I wouldn't really focus saying I have to have green lights on every single thing on Yoast SEO. That's just a little too much, and then it diminishes what you really need to do.
Okay, that's great information. And then
I second that. That tool, I get the purpose of it. I get that it's to guide, but you know, so now you can use variations of a term. So if that doesn't match, then they're going to give you like a red dot, but you're still saying the same thing. Like, say you have a headline with cat in it, and then it has Fido or like another term for like a cat, like. That's going to give you a bad score, and Google will get it. So I wouldn't go by that.
so Google doesn't really care so much about readability.
No. If Yoast knew what Google was looking for, they would not be telling everyone. They would keep that top secret.
Okay,
so.
that's really good. So my next question is, so when someone comes in and does a whole SEO optimization on your website, is there a general cost of someone that, you know, what that is for? I mean, we had it done, and then I've learned other things since then, and I'm just curious, were we taken?
I don't know if that would be one that we can.
It varies depending on the competition, the keywords, how much SEO is already done on your website. Because if you already have a lot of SEO done, probably don't need as much done. Or if you're a brand new website, it's a lot tougher. Or if you have 50,000 pages versus 500 pages. So everything is really unique. There's not just one set standard. If I do see that, I'd be worried that they're just a scam and ripping you off, or anyone that guarantees rankings. No one can guarantee rankings because no one knows how Google works. It's top secret. There's little bits and pieces that we know
That's
kind
why
of
we
help
have
out,
to have this kind of a
but
panel.
you really don't know what works. It's top secret. They don't let anyone know.
We've got time for one more question in the back here. I think we had already. What's that? Go ahead. Yeah. Sorry, making you run all over the mic.
You
I
can
know
find
some
us
people have to
afterwards,
go.
actually. As
yeah,
a matter of
we're
fact,
here all day.
I will be.
We are.
We'll be.
Constance and Brandon,
Find
maybe
us
for a little
after.
while. I know everyone
We'll
wants
be
to get to
around.
lunch. Okay, so just this last question.
So my question is around backlinks. Like, how much time should you spend getting backlinks, and do you have any tips for a backlink strategy?
So with the backlinks, I wouldn't spend too much time. It's more of quality of the backlinks versus quantity. So I would maybe try to get a few backlinks every month where Instead of you publishing your own blog post on your website, find someone else that's in a similar niche, reach out to them and say, hey, can I share this content with you? And I mean, you're gonna have to spend a lot of time reaching out because a lot of people are gonna say no, but if you get 1 or 2 or 3 a month, that's sufficient. I mean, mix it up, don't just do 3 every single month. That's also gonna leave a footprint to Google saying you're doing SEO. So 1 month, 5 the next month, 7 another month, but really you don't need to go crazy and try to build thousands of backlinks anymore. It's really quality of them. That's what Google's looking for.
Yeah, and backlinks are something that should happen naturally. So your focus should really be on creating great content, like the kind of content that people cannot resist sharing with each other. That's really the best advice as far as backlinking goes. Don't spend all of your time trying to figure out how to get back. It'll just drive you crazy. So just focus on improving the quality of your content.
And understand, as you grow and get bigger and you're meeting people and you're places like this, for example, like where somebody here might have a great platform, you might mesh and you can guest post, but in a natural way. Just be careful, make sure that it's relevant, that you like it. You don't, getting a bunch of links from other low quality sites will not help you. So just make sure that it's very like highbrow and very high quality sites, relevant too. If you have, if you're a health and tons of food people are linking to you, Google is just gonna be like, toss those out. Like for whatever reason, that looks suspicious to us.
Unless it's about healthy food, and then maybe. All right, guys, I think we have to end on that note. Thank you all so much for coming, and come
Thank you
find
so
us
much.
later.
Thank you.